So, thanks to Empress Lillian, I've been checking out the Hebrew Bible. And I don't really want to be on camera right now, but I'm kind of being goaded into by Spirit simply because I don't want to fucking be on camera. Because I've been told my whole life how ugly and weird I am. And unfortunately, garbage in, garbage out. I believed it. And it may be true, but I don't think it really fucking matters, actually. It obviously doesn't matter because Spirit's making me do this for a reason. So, anyway, um, in the Bible, which is that's the way every great conversation starts out in the Bible. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And when I read that, the first thing I thought of, and this is probably why I was moved to read the Bible, because since I'm not like, I don't know, Bible person, is that a thing? Yeah, it definitely is a thing, Annie. Okay. Since I'm not a Bible person, whatever that may mean, um, I'm coming to it with different eyes, way different eyes. So when I read, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. The first things I think of, waters, emotions, firmament between the waters to divide the waters from the waters. That made me think of the blood brain barrier in the brain. The blood brain barrier in the brain only lets certain things into it because it has to preserve the integrity of the brain. And I guess maybe the reason why I started thinking of that when I first read the firmament, firmament, new from Dentine, firmament. Um, the first, see, I'm a big dork too. This is also a reason why this isn't fun for me. There's an article that said that the galaxy resembles a neural network. And then I saw this podcast description. Sam Tripoli's one of his podcasts, probably tinfoil hat, that said, "We are living in an organism," in capital letters. And there's another part in the Bible where it says that, I can't read it verbatim, God will hold good thoughts for us. And I posted a message a while back, a channel message, that this universe that we are in is thought based. And so all of these ideas are sort of converging. And so when I first saw the passage about the firmament between the waters, I thought of the blood brain barrier. I didn't notice it, but I figured out later I kind of had this assumption that Earth was the brain. But then I got the idea, which may or may not be guided. I kind of think that it was, but I'm not going to say for sure because it didn't come in like a straight spiritual sort of message. If the galaxy is like a neural network, then it would be impossible for Earth to be the brain, as much as Earth might want to be the brain. So it would make more sense for this firmament, heaven, or blood brain barrier, to be protecting a location within this galaxy, within this neural network. And since we're going from Genesis, which deals with the creation of the earth, with the creation of the Garden of Eden, and with the fall, it makes a lot of sense to me that if this idea were on track, then, and this is where we kind of diverge from the whole blood-brain barrier idea being technically accurate. So you have to do a little transposition of stuff. But anyway, the blood-brain barrier is a protective barrier. And it's a barrier that keeps things pure, loosely. Keeps things that would be harmful to the brain from entering it. Now, again, I'm not saying Earth is the brain. I'm saying Earth could be like a location within the brain. And because of the Garden of Eden, then that makes me think that the logical, I don't know, expansion of this idea is that Earth was actually intended to be God's happy place. You know, like somebody tells you, you know, oh, you're having a hard time, go to your happy place. You know, that place in your brain where you have wonderful feelings and hope and happiness and paradise to comfort you when you need comfort. So that kind of spins the whole Genesis thing into a different direction. Because, I mean, for the basic, from what I've gathered, the basic point of the Garden of Eden was to be paradise. And then something went terribly wrong, right? Which got blamed on the woman. Big surprise, right? But I think that's incorrect too. But I'm still working on that part. So it's like when the fall happens in the Garden of Eden, the happy place gets corrupted by deception. And it specifically says here that the tree that was not supposed to be eaten from is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And people like to shorthand that in popular culture or the just in general. From what I've picked up, never literally reading the Bible to see what it said. It's always been like, oh, it's the tree of knowledge. Period. Just knowledge. Not knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge of good and evil is a lot different than knowledge. Knowledge of good and evil is judgment. Knowledge of good and evil is this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is evil. Literally, it's not knowledge, it's not all knowledge, it's knowledge of what goes here, what goes here, what goes here, what goes here. And if you think about happy place isn't really even supposed to contain that sort of analyzation. Happy place is supposed to be a happy place. And that's it. What I'm thinking is like, there's no judgment in the happy place because the happy place doesn't need it because it's the happy place. It's already been judged, right? Unless somebody comes in and fucks it up. And of course, the serpent comes in and fucks it up by deceiving Eve and Adam. But yet, when you read down and there's like all this curses, and this will happen and that will happen, and now your period's gonna suck and nothing's gonna grow and you're just gonna be dust and da 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 da. The instigator kind of gets off easy. All right, well, you're cursed to be on the ground to be a damn snake. Oh, and Adam, let me tell you a thing or two, or three or four. And Eve, oh bitch, right? So Adam and Eve get like all the, the really huge curses, and the snake is just sort of could go slither off, whatever. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what does make a lot of sense to me is like Adam and Eve being fresh new souls. And maybe the fruit on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is hallucinogenic. Quite possibly, but I'm not saying for sure, I don't know. Quite possibly, it wasn't a don't ever eat from it. Although it says if you eat from it, you'll surely die. So, I mean, if you've got two brand new souls that don't even know what death is because they're pure, and by being pure, they can hold enormous hope. Then possibly what death means is the death of the soul and the death of the ability to hold that hope. And two brand new souls would not be able to handle a mind expansion where they are violently introduced to the concept of good and evil without some sort of a primer first from God, without any sort of growth. They're just brand new. Hi, here's a trip for you. And here's a snake who can basically incept any kind of a bad trip that it would like to because it has the upper hand because it knows that the fruit is hallucinogenic in my little biblical fantasy here, right? Adam and Eve are tripping balls basically, and the snake is there putting out those snake vibes. And I thought, is it possible that these curses from God weren't actually curses that God was putting on them, but more like their projection onto his dismay that this had occurred in his happy place. I mean, like, if you've ever been in a situation where you thought somebody was going to be furious with you, and so when they actually spoke to you about something, the things that they said, because you came to that with this preconceived idea that they hated you because you'd done something wrong, you interpreted everything they said as something that would fit into that preconceived idea, like having this idea already in your head, and so you're just finding, cherry picking the evidence that supports it. I mean, this is an interpretation, so it really, I'm just, if you get something from it, you get something from it, and if you don't, you don't, and that's cool. Like maybe he wasn't actually cursing them, maybe he was heartbroken. And there's a line from one of Carrie Fisher's books, and she says, "What happened between what they gave and how I took it?" Meaning there's a space of interpretation in the middle, sort of a free will molecule, a hinge that can go one way or the other, or a Schrodinger's cat or whatever, depending upon how you choose to see it. And so everything from the fall forward has been the momentum of getting off on the wrong foot. Nicotine is a nootropic, by the way. So that idea is really attractive to me to think about. And I mean, I'm not done thinking about any of this. These are not like, oh, okay, this is how things are, and I'm telling, no, this is just speculation, but it's speculation that I've never heard anybody speculate. Whatever. Um, that like, okay, the reason why I see it like this is because my whole life, ever since I was a little tiny child, I had this nightmare. It was about a system of gears, much like what's in a clock, machinery, cycles, and kind of like a wheelhouse thing too, though, because like all these little containers in between the, the prominent parts of a gear, the interlocking things, where things are held, right? And there has to be like a balance in these things of things that are held in order for things to revolve correctly. And something happens in the initiation of this system of gears, very broad, expansive, interlocking system of gears, which is basically, even in my child's mind, representative of the world, of everything, all the elements, all the people, all the actions, all the ripples of the world. And all these little containers are meant to hold a certain amount of things. And something happens in the beginning of the initiation of this machinery, the fall, where too many things get placed in where they're not supposed to go, or not enough things in other areas, and the balance is thrown off. But instead of the clock literally being stopped, so things could be corrected and rebalanced and recalibrated. It's kind of like that dog with the coffee cup and the house fire, and this is fine. And things just keep going and getting more and more imbalanced. And the more imbalanced they get, the more it's like Lucy with candies and the conveyor belt, or the Sorcerer's Apprentice and Mickey with all of the, self-replicating helpers that end up causing the flood. I haven't gotten to the flood yet, so I'm not going to throw anything in there about that. But so, like, this was my nightmares, that all of these gears suddenly the machinery, the gears get chipped and things start going awry and basically chaos. And this was the most horrifying fucking dream, nightmare that I have ever had. Because I felt so intensely not only the chaos, but the feeling of loss and grief that that did not have to be. If there were just a clockmaker who was willing to stop the clock and fix it before letting things continue out of hand. And so I just naturally see a parallel between that nightmare and the story of the Garden of Eden and the whole subsequent Bible. Because to me, the the part of the Bible that has always really stood out to me is Jesus wept. Why would the Son of God weep? And further, if he's the son of the God, if he's the son of the God, okay, if he's the Son of God, then and who can turn water into wine and bring the loaves and the fishes and the whole nine, heal the lepers, everything. Then how could he be put on a cross? How could that happen? And there's a line in actually the Mahabharata. Basically, there's a character in the Mahabharata that says they say of him, he can only die if he wills it. And that, to my mind, would be how you would be able to put the Son of God on a cross and kill him. He would have to give his consent. And why would he give his consent? Why would he weep? Because he himself would have had to lose hope that anyone would hear him, that anyone would understand. They know not what they do. I mean, that's the only way you could take a divine being out, is with their consent. You know, or like the Bill Hicks bit about, nah, Dad, they're wearing crosses. I'll go back down there when they're wearing loaves and fishes. If people don't get it and you feel like they never will, that would be something that could make you give up hope. I heard Duncan Trussell say that Jesus was love. Everybody says Jesus is love, and that's true. But absolute, unconditional love. But did he receive absolute, unconditional love in the Bible? Oh, fuck. No, he did not. No. And that would break a heart. That would break any heart. And if we're made in God's image, then Jesus was certainly made in God's image. And the thing about that Mandela effect is it goes both ways. As above, so below, right? I don't know if I'm getting my point across here, but this is the interpretation that I'm getting without having my interpretive abilities skewed by the opinions of people who have an agenda. It's just me and spirit guiding me to this stuff. And Empress Lillian, thank you for the Hebrew Bible tip. God is not hateful. And why okay, if you created something and you looked at it and you said it is good, would you be so willing to all of a sudden tear it all down and make everything miserable forever and curse this and curse that in your own little diorama, in your own happy place? I mean, you could probably, make an argument for that, I guess, but I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me to have created so much beauty and so much potential and give up that easily on your creation. You might be pissed off at it for a little while and walk away, but then maybe you'd come back to it and you'd say, hey, okay, it kind of sucked, didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but what can we tweak here? What can we do to get back to the original point of the thing? I mean, would you really say, well, okay, that's it, fine. Every freaking baby from now on cursed. Gonna be had in the same way I originally planned it. Y'all got the organs and everything. But now all of a sudden that's wrong. And also the fact how here's another thing. It talks about how they were naked and ashamed. I'm not even gonna. They saw they were naked and they were ashamed. How does that work when God created everything and the concept of shame? I mean, what did they get it off the tree or did it come from the snake? How did they know what shame was? Why would they feel they were naked? I think shame could possibly be another form of fear, of being afraid of vulnerability, afraid of being bad. I don't know if that's a confirmation or a notification. It doesn't matter. Like, because then it says that, okay, earlier it says that we eat the fruit from the tree and the animals eat the grass. There's no, and then you kill this animal and you eat it and you take its skin and wear it. There's none of that has been set up yet, right? But it says God clothed them in skins. He's all mad that all this stuff has happened, so now he's going to slaughter animals and take their skins and put them on the skin of the creatures he's already created? Or is there something going on with the whole Leviathan spirit, how that's been described as being skinless, and them now being skinless, which I take to be sort of akin to having a thin skin, not being able to let things roll off of your back. Because we have that layer in our skin that basically waterproofs us, right? Almost like a blood-brain barrier. And so what if you take away that barrier, that protective barrier, which in this case would be innocence? In that way, you could be naked and ashamed. if shame is vulnerability, your protective layer of innocence has been stripped away. Anything can get in, anything at all, and it can distort and affect you however, right? Which is how I think of the Leviathan spirit, because I associate the Leviathan spirit with blind pain and anger and judgment. I think like in that way, it would be closing them in skins. Here's a barrier of, I don't know, forgetting, maybe? I don't know what it would be. I haven't thought that part through. I'm just trying to get this out because if I don't, then I might never. And maybe somebody could get something from it. And also, Spirit is making me say shit on camera and talk because my self expression has been involuntarily confined for a couple of fucking decades now. And now's the time where we change that shit. So, if you have a problem with my appearance, if you have a problem with what I say, get a thicker skin and go pay attention to something else, right? Because on the off chance this might help somebody or give somebody a different view of, I mean, if Jesus is supposed to be complete unconditional love and he's the Son of God, wouldn't that also be true of God? And if we're just a whole bunch of thought forms here in God's happy place, maybe faith is supposed to be reciprocal. And maybe it's hard for God to have faith in us if we don't have faith in him, if we don't give him the benefit of the doubt, if we don't give each other the benefit of the doubt. That maybe something happened that we haven't yet become aware of between what he gave and how we took it. Food for thought. I wish you much love and light if you have stayed with me this long.